Please welcome our host for today's contest, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Arts Commission, Malcolm White.
On behalf of the Mississippi Arts Commission and our partners at the National Endowment for the Arts and Poetry Foundation, I welcome you to the 12th Annual Poetry Out Loud Mississippi Recitation Contest. A special thanks to Kim Belinsky and to Charlotte Smelser on our staff and all of the staff members of the Mississippi Arts Commission. This year, more than 310,000 students and more than 2,300 schools participated in Poetry Out Loud, a poetry education program that is offered free of charge to high school students and teachers across our great nation. Our journey began 38 high schools from across Mississippi, from Meridian to Vicksburg, South Haven to Biloxi, began toward the journey of today's contest when they registered to participate in Mississippi's Poetry Out Loud program at the beginning of the academic year. In some schools, it began in an English class. In others, theater, and yet others with an interested teacher or club advisor. 2,839 students and 114 dedicated teachers participated in Mississippi's Poetry Out Loud this year. In February, the school champions represented their schools at one of the 3 regional contests held across the state, and each of those regional contest winners are here today. With my personal warm wishes to all contestants, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you our honored guest, Mississippi's Poet Laureate, Beth Ann Finley.
T.S. Eliot said, "Poetry begins with the beating of the drum." And what I think he meant by that is long before we had paper and we had any way to write, we had the very human need to make our stories memorable and meaningful by setting them to music, the music of the human voice. And that's what we've come here to celebrate today, poetry as it rises up through the windpipe and comes into the ear of another person. Anyone who's here today has already become a winner by inviting poetry into their body on that deepest level. So I believe that what's happened here with you, taking those poems into you, is important because poetry clears room for reflection. And poetry stocks the brain with powerful images. And poetry helps educate the emotions, which is important because we think our emotions are perfectly clear and accessible, but that's very rarely the case. It's hard work to know how you feel. But only when you see things clearly can you think clearly, and only when you think clearly can you read and write clearly, and only when you read and write clearly can you change the world. If you have found this to be meaningful, find a way to keep this flame in your heart. It is now my privilege to introduce the MC for this contest. A native of Jackson, Mississippi, Sharita Brent, also known as Rita B., is a professional drummer, radio host, and stand-up comedian. She's a graduate from the Navy School of Music in Norfolk, Virginia. Sharita worked as an on-air personality at WJSU 88.5 FM before joining Mississippi Public Broadcasting, where she currently serves as a weekday local radio show host and producer. Please welcome Sharita Brent.
Welcome. And first, let me tell you how proud Mississippi Public Broadcasting is to share Poetry Out Loud with our statewide television audience. We believe that academic contests should and do stand on the same stage as all other pursuits of excellence, and that the contestants deserve not only our attention, but our respect. Poetry Out Loud seeks to promote the art of poetry in both the classroom and the community. The program provides an entry point for many students to learn to love poetry and for many to introduce them to poems that will stay with them for a lifetime. Judging recitations is one of the most important and most difficult aspects of Poetry Out Loud. Judges are asked to evaluate very different recitations, each displaying an impressive level of excellence, and they must decide how well students represent complex poems that may lend themselves to more than one interpretation. The integrity of Poetry Out Loud rests on the work of the judges at each and every level of the contest. Serving on today's panel of judges are Executive Director of both the Mary C. O'Keefe Center in Ocean Springs and of the Mississippi Theater Association, Stacy Howell. Editor and instructor of English at Jackson State University, poet and fiction writer C. Lee McInnes. Artistic Director of Jackson's New Stage Theater, Francine Reynolds. Assistant Professor of English and Director of Writing and Teaching at Millsaps College, Dr. Anita Derwan. Poet, writer, and Mississippi Arts Commission roster artist, Dr. Benjamin Morris. And courtesy of the Mississippi Arts Commission, our accuracy judge is Connie Soto-Learman, our prompter is Diane Williams, and our score tabulators are Shirley Smith and Turi Fluker. Poetry Out Loud recitations are scored in 5 categories: physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, and overall performance. It is interesting to note that Poetry Out Loud is a contest, not a competition. If it were a competition, the contestants would all be reciting the same poems, and the judges would be choosing one recitation over another. In Poetry Out Loud, the judges evaluate each recitation independently according to the 5 scoring categories using a predefined 6-level scoring system. In other words, the judges do not select the finalists, the scores do. There will be 3 rounds in today's contest. Each contestant has prepared 3 poems and will each recite one in round 1 and another in round 2. The 3 top scoring contestants will then each recite a 3rd poem to determine who will represent Mississippi at the National Recitation Contest in Washington, D.C. in April. And now we begin round 1 of the Poetry Out Loud 2017 Mississippi Recitation Contest. Our first contestant is Emma Gousset.
Love Letters by Diane Thiel. My mother wanted to learn some German for my father, and because her children could already speak it a little. She was tired of dusting the stacks of books she couldn't read, tired of the letters she always had to ask him to translate. He was usually willing to translate the cards his mother had written in German, but sometimes there were other letters, and when he read them to her and the children, she had the same feeling she'd had with books before she learned to read. When she was little, she said it bothered her a little that her own children would have to translate for her, that they could pick up the same books that were as Greek to her as they were German. She started learning it from her children and decided to leave my father letters. She wrote my father daily love letters and carefully placed them on the little table where they put things for the children, next to our favorite set of translations of fairy tales we first heard in German. She leaned one every day against his books, the white paper stark beside the dark books. But my father never answered her letters. Instead, he returned them with his German corrections in the margin, his little red marks, hieroglyphs for her to translate as if she were one of the children. Maybe she was just one of the children in that house, surrounded by rows of books. Maybe her whole life was a translation of what she imagined in the letters. The space between them made her that little girl, wandering lost inside the German. Because her own children were half German, she built her life around those little books, translating the lines of her own letters.
The next contestant is D'Angelo Jefferson.
Trees by Joyce Kilmer. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that's May and summer, where a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
The next contestant is Desiree Roby.
Fishing on the Susquehanna in July by Billy Collins. I have never been fishing on the Susquehanna, or on any river for that matter, to be perfectly honest. Not in July or any month have I had the pleasure, if it is a pleasure, of fishing on the Susquehanna. I am more likely to be found in a quiet room, like this one. A painting of a woman on the wall, a bowl of tangerines on the table, trying to manufacture the sensation of fishing on the Susquehanna. There's little doubt that others have been fishing on the Susquehanna, rowing upstream in a wooden boat, sliding the oars under the water, then raising them to drip in the light. But the nearest I have ever come to fishing on the Susquehanna was one afternoon in a museum in Philadelphia when I balanced a little egg of time in front of a painting in which that river curled around a bend under a blue cloud-ruffled sky, dense trees along the banks, and a fellow with a red bandana sitting in a small green flat-bottomed boat holding the thin whip of a pole. That is something I am unlikely ever to do, I remember saying to myself and the person next to me. Then I blinked and moved on to other American scenes of haystacks, water whitening over rocks, even one of a brown hare who seemed so wired with alertness. I imagine him springing right out of the frame.
Our next contestant is Amber Jackson.
The Consent by Howard Nemerov. Late in November, on a single night, not even near the freezing, the ginkgo trees that stand along the walk drop all their leaves in one consent. And neither to rain nor to wind, but as though to time alone. The golden and green leaves litter the lawn today that yesterday had spread aloft their fluttering fans of light. What signal from the stars? What senses took it in? What in those wooden motives so decided to strike their leaves? to down their leaves. Rebellion or surrender? And if this can happen thus, what race shall be exempt? What use to learn the lessons taught by time if a star at any time may tell us, now?
Our next contestant is Keith Davis.
God's Grandeur by Gerard Manley Hopkins. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed. Why do men then now not wreck his rod? Generations have trod, have trod, have trod. And all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears man's smudge and shares man's smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness, deep down things, and though the last lights off the black west went, O morning, at the brown brink eastward, springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with bright wings.
Our next contestant is Catherine Lee.
Degrees of Gray in Phillipsburg by Richard Hugo. You might come here Sunday on a whim. Say your life broke down. The last good kiss you had was years ago. You walk these streets laid out by the insane, past hotels that didn't last, bars that did. The tortured try of local drivers to accelerate their lives. Only churches are kept up. The jail turned 70 this year. The only prisoner is always in, not knowing what he's done. The principle supporting business now is rage. Hatred of the various grays the mountain sends. Hatred of the mill. The silver bill, repill. The best-liked girls who leave each year for Butte. One good restaurant and bars can't wipe the boredom out. The 1907 boom, 8 going silver mines. A dance floor built on springs. All memory resolves itself in gaze. In panoramic green, you know the cattle eat. Or 2 stacks high above the town, 2 dead kilns, the huge mill in collapse for 50 years that won't fall finally down. Isn't this your life? That ancient kiss still burning out your eyes? Isn't this defeat so accurate the church bell simply seems a pure announcement? Ring, and no one comes? Don't empty houses ring? Are magnesium and scorn sufficient to support a town, not just Phillipsburg, but towns of towering blondes, good jazz and booze the world will never let you have until the town you came from dies inside? Say no to yourself. The old man 20 when the jail was built still laughs, although his lips collapse. Someday soon, he says, I'll go to sleep and not wake up. You tell him no. You're talking to yourself. The car that brought you here still runs. The money you buy lunch with, no matter where it's mined, is silver. And the girl who serves your food is slender, and her red hair lights the wall.
The next contestant is Skylar Miller.
Mezzo Camine by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Half of my life is gone, and I've let the years slip from me and have not fulfilled the aspiration of my youth, to build some tower of song with lofty parapet. Not indolence, nor pleasure, nor the fret of restless passions that would not be stilled, but sorrow, and a care that almost killed, kept me from what I may accomplish yet. Though halfway up the hill, I see the past lying beneath me with its sounds and sights. A city in the twilight, dim and vast, with smoking roofs, soft bells, and gleaming lights. And here above me on the autumnal blast, the cataract of death, far thundering from the heights.
The next contestant is Lawson Marchetti.
Confessions by Robert Browning. What is he buzzing in my ears? Now that I come to die, do I view the world as a vale of tears? Ah, Reverend Sir, not I. What I viewed there once, what I view again where the physic bottle stands on the table's edge, is a suburb lane with a wall to my bedside hand. That lane sloped much as the bottles do from a house you could descry o'er the garden wall. Is the curtain blue or green to a healthy eye? To mine it serves for the old June weather, blue above lane and wall. And that farthest bottle, labeled ether, is the house o'ertopping all. At a terrace, somewhere near the stopper, there watched for me, one June, a girl. I know, sir, it's improper. My poor mind's out of tune. Only there was a way. You crept close by the side to dodge eyes in the house. 2 eyes except. They styled their house the lodge. What right had a lounger up their lane but by creeping very close, with the good wall's help, their eyes might strain and stretch themselves to O's, yet never catch her and me together. As she left the attic, there, by the rim of the bottle labeled ether, and stole from stair to stair, and stood by the rose-wreathed gate, alas, we loved, sir. Used to meet. How sad and bad and mad it was, but then how it was sweet.
The next contestant is Raven Gonsolin.
Ways of Talking by Ha Jen. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows. Even if there was no grief, we wouldn't stop lamenting, as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief, as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. So many things descended without warning. Labor wasted, loves lost, houses gone, marriages broken, friends estranged, ambitions worn away by immediate needs. Words lined up in our throats for a good whining. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and then giving up a tongue, we stopped talking of grief. Smiles began to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things become beautiful. Even hailstones in the strawberry fields.
This concludes round 1 of the Poetry Out Loud 2017 Mississippi Recitation Contest. We'll now proceed directly to round 2, during which we'll hear a second recitation from each contestant. The first recitation in round 2 is by Emma Gousset.
Hymn to God, in my sickness, by John Donne. Since I am coming to that holy room, where, with thy choir of saints forevermore, I shall be made thy music. As I come, I tune the instrument here at the door, and what I must do then, think here before. Whilst my physicians, by their love, are grown cosmographers, and I their map, who lie flat on this bed, that by them may be shown that this is my southwest discovery, per fritem fibris, by these straits to die. I joy that in these straits I see my west, for though their currents yield return to none, what shall my west hurt me? As west and east in all flat maps, and I am one, are one, so death doth touch the resurrection. Is the Pacific Sea my home, or are the eastern riches? Is Jerusalem, Anian, and Magellan, and Gibraltar all straits, and none but straits are ways to them? Whether where Japhet dwelt, or Ham, or Shem, we think that paradise and Calvary, Christ's cross and Adam's tree stood in one place. Look, Lord, and find both Adams met in me. As the first Adam's sweat surrounds my face, may the last Adam's blood my soul embrace. So, in his purple wrapped, receive me, Lord. By these his thorns, give me his other crown. And as to other souls, I preached thy word. Be this my text, my sermon to mine own. Therefore, that he may raise, the Lord throws down.
Next up is D'Angelo Jefferson.
I Remember, by Thomas Hood. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn, He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother set the laburnum for his birthday. The tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then. That is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance. But now 'tis little joy to know I'm farther from heaven than when I was a boy.
Next up is Desiree Roby.
The Pilgrim by John Bunyan. Who would true valor see? Let him come hither. One here will constant be, come wind, come weather. There's no discouragement shall make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. Whoso beset him round with dismal stories do but themselves confound. His strength the more is. No lion can him fright. He'll with a giant fight, but he will have a right to be a pilgrim. Hobgoblin nor foul fiend can daunt his spirit. He knows he at the end shall life inherit. Then fancies fly away. He'll fear not what men say. He'll labor night and day to be a pilgrim.
Next up is Amber Jackson.
Ways of Talking by Ha Jin. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows. Even if there was no grief, we wouldn't stop lamenting, as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief. So many things descended without warning. Loves lost, labor wasted, houses gone, marriages broken, friends estranged, ambitions worn away by immediate needs. Words lined up in our throats for good whining. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and then giving up a tongue, we stopped talking of grief. Smiles begin to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things become beautiful, even hailstones in the strawberry fields.
Next up is Keith Davis.
Domestic Situation by Ernest Hilbert. Maybe you've heard about this, maybe not. A man came home and chucked his girlfriend's cat in the wood chipper. This really happened. Dinner wasn't ready on time. A lot of other little things went wrong. He spat on her father, who came out when he learned about it. He also broke her pinky, stole her checks, and got her sister pregnant. But she stood by him, stood strong through it all, because she loved him. She loved him, you see. She actually said that. And then she went and married him. She felt some unique call. Don't try to understand what another person means by love. Don't even bother.
Next up is Catherine Lee.
Every Single Day by John Straley, after Raymond Carver's Hummingbird. Suppose I said the word springtime, and I wrote the words King Salmon on a piece of paper and mailed it to you. When you opened it, would you remember that afternoon we spent together in the yellow boat, when the early whales were feeding and we caught our first fish of the year? Or would you remember that time off Cape Flattery when you were a little girl, your father smoking, telling stories as he ran the boat? Then the tug and zing of that very first fish spooling off into the gray-green world. You laughing and brushing back your hair before setting the hook. I know I am hard to understand sometimes, particularly when you're standing at the post office with only a piece of paper saying King Salmon on it. But just think of it as a promissory note. And that electric tug, that thrill pulling your mind into deep water, is how I feel about you every single day.
Next up is Skylar Miller.
My Grandmother's Love Letters by Hart Crane. There are no stars tonight, but those of memory. Yet, how much room for memory there is in the loose girdle of soft rain. There is even room enough for the letters of my mother's mother, Elizabeth, that have been pressed so long into a corner of the roof that they are brown and soft and liable to melt as snow. Over the greatness of such space, steps must be gentle. It is all hung by an invisible white hair. It trembles as birch limbs webbing the air. And I ask myself, are your fingers long enough to play old keys that are but echoes? Is the silence strong enough to carry back the music to its source and back to you again as though to her? Yet I would lead my grandmother by the hand through much of what she would not understand. And so I stumble, and the rain continues on the roof with such a sound of gently pitying laughter.
Next up is Lawson Marchetti.
Sweetness by Stephen Dunn. Just when it has seemed I couldn't bear one more friend waking with a tumor, one more maniac with a perfect reason. Often a sweetness has come and changed nothing in the world except the way I stumbled through it. For a while, lost in the ignorance of loving someone or something, the world shrunk to mouth size, hand size, and never seeming small. I acknowledge there is no sweetness that doesn't leave a stain. No sweetness that's ever sufficiently sweet. Tonight a friend called to say his lover was killed in a car he was driving. His voice was low and guttural. He repeated what he needed to repeat, and I repeated the one or two words we have for such grief, until we were speaking only in tones. Often a sweetness comes as if on loan, stays just long enough to make sense of what it means to be alive, then returns to its dark source. As for me, I don't care where it's been, or what bitter road it's traveled to come so far, to taste so good.
Next up is Raven Gonsolin.
Envy by Mary Lamb. This rose tree is not made to bear the violet blue, nor lily fair, nor the sweet mignonette. And if this tree were discontent or wished to change its natural bent, it all in vain would fret. And should it fret, you would suppose it ne'er had seen its own red rose, nor after gentle shower had ever smelled its rose's scent. Or it could ne'er be discontent with its own pretty flower. Like such a blind and senseless tree as I've imagined this to be, all envious persons are. With care and culture, all may find some pretty flower in their own mind, some talent that is rare.
Welcome back for the final round of the Poetry Out Loud 2017 Mississippi Recitation Contest. The scores from the first and second rounds have been tabulated, and the three highest scoring contestants will now each recite a third poem. The scores they earn in this round will be added to their standing scores and will be used to select Mississippi's representative to the Poetry Out Loud National Recitation Contest to be held in Washington, D.C. on April 25th and 26th. The contestants in round 3 in alphabetical order are Amber Jackson, D'Angelo Jefferson, and Lawson Marchetti. Congratulations, and now let's begin the third and final round of the Poetry Out Loud 2017 Mississippi Recitation Contest. First up is D'Angelo Jefferson, a junior at Pascagoula High School.
A Locked House by W.D. Snodgrass. As we drove back, crossing the hill, the house still hidden in the trees, I always thought, a fool's fear, that it might have caught fire. Someone could have broken in, as if things must have been too good here. Still, we always found it locked tight, safe and sound. I mentioned that once as a joke. No doubt we spoke of the absurdity to fear some door god's jealousy of our good fortune. From the farm next door, our neighbors saw no harm, came to the things we cared for here. What did we have to fear? Maybe I should have thought. All such things rot, fall, barns, houses, furniture. We two were stronger than we were apart. We've grown together. Everything we own can burn. We know what counts. Some such idea. We said as much. We'd watch friends driven to betray, felt that love drained away some self they need. We said love, like a growth, can feed on hate we turn in and disguise. We'd warn ourselves that you might despise me, hate all we both loved best. None of us ever guessed. The house still stands, locked, as it stood untouched a good 2 years after you went. Some things passed in the settlement, some things slipped away. Enough's left that I come back sometimes. The theft and vandalism were our own. Maybe we should have known.
Next is Amber Jackson, a junior at Mississippi School for Math and Science.
Often Rebuked, Yet Always Back Returning by Emily Bronte. Often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me, and leaving busy chase of wealth and learning for idle dreams of things which cannot be. Today, I will seek not the shadowy region. Its unsustaining vastness waxes drear, and visions rising legion after legion bring the unreal world too strangely near. I'll walk, but not in old heroic traces, and not in paths of high morality, and not among the half-distinguished faces, the clouded forms of long past history. I'll walk where my own nature would be leading. It vexes me to choose another guide, where the gray flocks in ferny glens are feeding, where the wild wind blows on the mountainside. What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? More glory and more grief than I can tell. The earth that awakes one human heart to feeling can center both the worlds of heaven and hell.
Our final recitation is by Lawson Marchetti, a senior at Jackson Preparatory School.
Every Single Day by John Straley, after Raymond Carver's Hummingbird. Suppose I said the word springtime, and I wrote the words King Salmon on a piece of paper and mailed it to you. When you opened it, would you remember that afternoon we spent together in the yellow boat? When the early whales were feeding? And we caught our first fish of the year? Or would you remember that time off Cape Flattery when you were a little girl? Your father smoking, telling stories as he ran the boat? And the tug and zing of that very first fish spooling off into the gray-green world. You laughing and brushing back your hair before setting the hook. I know. I am hard to understand sometimes. Particularly when you're standing at the post office with only a piece of paper saying King Salmon on it. But just think of it as a promissory note. And that electric tug, that thrill pulling your mind into deep water, is how I feel about you every single day.
While the tabulators compile the final scores, let's listen to more from Mark and Jamie. And now, the announcement we've all been waiting to hear. The naming of our third and second place finalists and of our 2017 state champion. Here to present this year's awards are Malcolm White, Executive Director of the Mississippi Arts Commission, and Beth Ann Fennelly, Poet Laureate of the State of Mississippi. The 2017 Mississippi Poetry Out Loud third place finalist is Amber Jackson. The 2017 Mississippi Poetry Out Loud second place finalist and recipient of a $100 award and a $200 stipend for his school library is D'Angelo Jefferson. And the 2017 Mississippi Poetry Out Loud state champion and recipient of a $200 award, an all-expense-paid trip for two to Washington, D.C., and a $500 stipend for his school library is Lawson Marchetti.
Once again, congratulations to all of our contestants, to all of their families, to their schools, their support groups. We really appreciate what you bring to the table, and we honor you today with your great work. I'd also now like to give a big thanks to our artful friends and family. To my friends Mark Romer and Jamie Weems, our musicians, thank you guys. And a special thanks to our honored guest, Mississippi's Poet Laureate, Beth Ann Fennelly. Again, congratulations and thanks to everyone who contributed to these 12 years of success of Poetry Out Loud in Mississippi, to the teachers, to to the students, to the coaches, to the parents, to the clinicians, to the volunteers, to the judges, and the schools and the organizations that have partnered with the Mississippi Arts Commission to bring this program to our students, to our state, and including in that list the Yakmatathal Arts Council in Oxford, the Margaret Walker Alexander National Research Center at Jackson State, the Hattiesburg Arts Council, Trinity Presbyterian Church in Starkville, Parkway Heights United Methodist Church in Hattiesburg, the Mary C. O'Keefe Culture Center of Arts and Education in Ocean Springs.
Registration for Poetry Out Loud 2018 Mississippi Recitation Contest opens on Monday, May 1st. Any and all schools that teach students in grades 9 through 12 are encouraged to visit the Mississippi Arts Commission website at www.arts.ms.gov for more information.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Poetry Out Loud 2017 Mississippi Recitation Contest.